Hello my friends. Today I want to talk to you about a technique that I'm not really seeing a ton of people use anymore, but it was something that was ubiquitous in the old days on the hong and the handpan, and that's singing the ding. And this is when we're taking our hand. Some people do it with the pointer finger or middle finger, other people do it with the bottom of their hand, and they're applying pressure on the X or the Y axis, very gentle rubbing, and that's causing the octave note or the fifth to resonate. It's kind of like if you were to hum like into this instrument, you would hear the equivalent note ring in sympathetic resonance. This is causing a vibration on that X and Y axis that's causing one of those two to also vibrate. It works really well with nitrided pans. I find that I have a harder time on stainless unless my hands are extremely dry. But let me show you what it sounds like and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. Alright, so this is what I like to do to sing the ding on this particular instrument. Every instrument's going to have a different angle of attack, but what you want to do first is find where your finger can go to get the octave and the fifth. And you can find that by either looking at what scale you have or just seeing what resonates with fifth, and this is the octave note. Usually the octave can be found by putting your finger in between the more narrow side if you have an oval-shaped instrument. So at this angle here, octave and fifth. The reason this matters is when we want to activate that note. So say I want to activate the fifth, I'm going to be going this way, and I want to activate the octave, I'm going to be going this way on this particular instrument. This is good to know because if you do it in the wrong direction, it's not going to make a sound. So that's step number one. Once we found out where these fingers are, pay attention to that because we're going to start using this part of our hand. And this is how I do it. There are other ways to do it. And we're going to be applying gentle pressure, especially around here, just on the edge of this. And we're not pushing down, we're kind of just rubbing until our skin catches. So it might take a second. And then once you get it going, it's really easy to keep it going. And you can practice trying to make that steady. The only thing that matters is that you're staying on that same axis point. Because if you don't, then it'll just stop. In the case of this, I'm keeping that same motion with a slightly cupped hand. So my hand's kind of contouring this ding, and that's allowing me to catch my skin in both directions. And when I'm doing it, I'm not doing directly on top. I'm kind of doing up a little bit and then down. So I'm catching on this side of the ding, and then I'm catching on this side of the ding. And I'll do a close-up of that so you can see. Alright, so here's a close-up view of that. So again, we're finding our X and Y, which is our octave and fifth. Remembering where we are on that, and we're putting our hand in that angle that that note was in. So if this is my octave note, I'm going to activate the fifth by going in this direction. And I'm putting my hand just on the edge of here and catching it with my skin and doing the same thing on the way back. But I start just in one direction. So I'm pulling my hand in this direction. Same thing could be done in the opposite direction. Now, if we wanted to also activate the fifth, or sorry, the octave, that's a little bit harder. On some scales, it's going to activate more easily than other ones, but we'd be going in this direction. This particular scale doesn't have a ton of interaction with the octave note, but I can make it ring. Sometimes even hitting the note first helps. But it's going to mean that you're going to have to find an instrument that has really good activation between those notes. So you can also try with your pointer finger. I find that to be a little more inconsistent for me. Some people like to use the fleshy part of their finger, but I find that this large surface area is the easiest to activate it. I want to give you an idea of what it sounds like on a stainless steel as well, so we're going to take a look at that really quick. And this is what it would sound like on stainless. You can think of it almost as bowing a note. You're kind of moving with the shape of the ding when you're making the sound and rubbing your hand very lightly. There's a very light pressure there. So when I first heard someone do this, I always wondered how the heck they were doing it, because no matter what I did, I could not get it to sound like it was in the video. And this could be for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons could be that your instrument's very oiled. There's always debate about what the appropriate cleaning process is, what the appropriate substance is to coat them. Right now I'm in a phase where I'm mostly using alcohol to clean them and not applying a ton of oil, particularly on heavily nitrided instruments that are a little more porous to oil. Stainless steel I don't worry as too much about in terms of, being as diligent about not oiling them. But this particular one, this is a Zenith handpan, it's very nitrided, it has a very ceramic feel, so it grabs your skin really easily. But something you can do if your particular handpan maker says this is okay, and I can't speak to all handpans, is use a high-proof rubbing alcohol. This is just random brand. And apply that to a paper towel and clean the ding area with that. And this is going to just take away any surface oils there. And you could actually just clean your whole instrument while you're at it, but that will clean that particular area, allow it to not be as slippery, and that could give you a little bit more help when you're trying to make this sound. Another option, which is not really talked about but is often used, is rosin. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so if those haven't worked, let's do some troubleshooting for you. The first thing that could be the issue is that you have too much oil on your instrument. The heavily nitrided pans tend to be very porous, or a little porous, so I've taken to not using as much oil on this type of pan, just because of the potential for dampening sound. Stainless, I've never had a problem with that on stainless, so I don't really worry too much. A lot of makers, and you'll have to ask your particular instrument's maker what the appropriate cleaning process is for their material, but oftentimes I will wipe down my instrument with rubbing alcohol, high-proof rubbing alcohol, let it dry, and then coat it in whatever product I want to use for that month or that couple weeks. If I'm playing an instrument a lot, obviously I'm doing this more frequently. But if you do clean the ding area with that high-proof rubbing alcohol, that's going to take away any oils there, so it's going to add more friction to the movement. So when you go to do this, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do it. The second layer to this is that sometimes people use rosin. Right now I'm not using rosin. This is just, my hands are very dry at the moment, so it works out well. But rubbing your hands together so that they're like, there's a little heat and there's a little bit of dampness, but they're not completely dry is perfect. You don't want them to be slippery and grimy or slidey, but that's one option. Also, washing your hands before you try it can be really useful because that can clean off any excess oils. But if you do use rosin, again, I would ask your maker if this is appropriate for your scale. This is not my recommendation to do it. You could use something like violin rosin and just use a little bit of that powder, apply it to either your finger or your hand, and then try it, and that's going to help it grip. And it's the same process they use for making a bow grip a string. And that makes it far easier. But it's kind of nice to practice it without it, but I have many times done it with rosin as well. So ultimately, troubleshooting can be cleaning your note with rubbing alcohol, trying to wash your hands so that they're a little more dry, And as a last resort, you could try rosin if that's appropriate for your instrument and your maker says that won't cause a problem. And again, any risk you take is on you, not on me. So, hope you enjoyed singing the ding, and I'll leave you with a little tune using the ding singing. Here we go. And let me know what you want to see next in the comments and what you thought of this and if you got it. Have a good one, guys. One more thing that I almost forgot to tell you. If you keep your hand on a note for a long period of time, maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds, it temporarily detunes. This is not an issue. This is the same process that would happen if you brought it out in a warm day and it all settles. This is true of all instruments. This is not just a particular brand or anything. But if you're practicing this, eventually you're going to have to take a break because your hand's going to heat up that note and change the note. So I want to give you an example of that. Listen to this note. And listen, if I just leave, this is just my normal palm. I'm not pressing on it. I'm just resting my warm hand on that note. And you're going to hear that it drops and it comes out of tune temporarily. It's not permanently out of tune, but I'm just warning you, if you practice this, you're going to experience that. Now it's out of tune. And it's slowly going to go back into tune. So if you notice the notes really aren't resonating after you get it going, take a little break, try it again, and it'll be fine. Okay? Enjoy, guys.